I got asked the other day, have you put your motorcycle away yet? Now this is late October in Maine and the weather's getting a little bit cooler, and someone asked me, have you put it away yet for the season? I'm Andrew, I'm the Flannel Philosopher, and I would love to talk to you about why you should keep riding even when the weather's cooler and how you can enjoy that. Now, the answer is no, I've not put my motorcycle away yet. Probably it'll never get put away for the season. A couple factors to that. First of all, this morning, the ride was about 44, 45 degrees, and I love riding this time of year. A couple reasons. One, there's less people on the road. I live in a beautiful area that there's a lot of tourists that come. Yes, I ride all year long, but now the tourists are kind of going away. It's just the locals, and it is so much easier to ride those roads that you've been loving all year long. Why would I give up the time where the roads are the clearest to ride? Another thing I love about riding this time of year is as some of the leaves are coming off, the views change radically. There's things you can see this time of year that you can't see any other type of year. Another reason I love riding this time of year is because I think there's a challenge, like there's a preparation that I enjoy, like where a lot of people are saying, I can't go there. Like we can still go, ride, and enjoy it. Now, how do you do this? This morning I said it was 44 degrees, and something that only became aware of this year is that the temperature, the colder it gets and the faster you go, the real feel drops substantially. For instance, there's a chart I was looking at that said if it's about 40 degrees and you're averaging 60 miles an hour, the real feel is about 9 degrees. Now that's quite a drop from what it is normally. There's a couple pieces that I think of when I think of cold weather riding and that make it successful and fun. First of all, what are the conditions on the ground? This involves temperature, how long you're going to be riding, and what speeds you anticipate riding on average. Sometimes I know I'll dress a certain way when I know I'm only going 15 or 20 minutes, that if I was trying to do an hour or 2 hours, that would not be sufficient. If I know I'm all on back roads versus if I'm on highway or highway-like speeds, that's going to be a very different picture. So knowing what the temperatures are, how long you're going to be riding is a big part of preparing well. Now, I think of preparation sort of in two breakdown categories for cold weather riding. One is the gear that you're wearing. Now, I think layers are super important. Now, you can use different variety of layers, but there's one thing you need to make sure you have is that's a windproof layer. If that wind is coming through and hitting you, it's going to chill you down so quickly. I wear a Klim jacket for cold weather riding. I'm not saying there's a lot of other good brands out there, but Klim is kind of the one that I've been wearing for cold weather riding. And as long as you shut all the vents, it is perfect. This morning I forgot to shut a couple vents and I felt that chill pretty quickly. Another piece of gear to me that is essential, particularly when it comes to wind protection, is your neck. I actually use this neck protector from, I think Halversons is the name of it. It looks like a Swedish company. It's got the front, it has like a wind and waterproof layer. The back is kind of flexible. I love this because it actually drops down low into like your jacket area, and this kind of just tucks up into your helmet. This is actually a piece of gear that I think is essential. Now, I'm not saying this brand, but I have loved this brand. To have good neck protection, you will get so cold so quickly with that wind hitting your throat. So I actually almost always carry this in my toolkit, like even in the summer, because even a little bit of rain, a little bit of wind, this is a piece of gear that it's not very big, but I think it's so important to have. You also could talk about gear including like gloves. Like you want gloves that are warm. Now some people have different preferences. I tend to prefer a little bit lighter glove and rely a little bit more on like heated hand grips or wind protection from your handlebars. But it's something to think about. It's like if your hands get cold, it's going to be pretty unpleasant pretty quickly. And then you want as many layers as possible. In really cold weather, will use like a heated layer. I'll have gloves and a jacket. I don't have heated pants, but I like that. And then for socks, I'll even layer the socks. Alpaca wool is typically what I like to use. It is phenomenal. Some people say, well, why wouldn't you just get one great layer and have it do everything? Well, frequently the temperatures will change throughout a day. Now that's not always the case. In like the dead of winter, it's not going to, but often like a day like today, it was 40 degrees coming out this morning. But this afternoon, it'll be 60, 65 degrees. Well, that's a big swing. So if you're wearing just one layer that doesn't have flexibility, you can't shed or add on layers. It's also interesting if you're riding in the sun versus if you go to a spot that's either really windy or really shaded, that changes the feel dramatically. So layers, I think, to me is the solution, where you could add on or take off layers as you need to regulate your body temperature. I do love heated gear for particularly that long or cold, like particularly cold weather. I'm not always running it, but it's nice to have as a backup. Another thing I think psychologically to me that I love is I love having at least one wet option I'm not using. So I'll keep either, to keep the heated gear off or involve it with me but not bring it, because psychologically I love having one more thing I could do to try to get warm, to stay warm. So that's kind of the gear side of things. The bike side of things is a little bit different, and you could say, some bikes are better set up, some are not. That is absolutely true. If you get into cold weather riding, it might be a factor in deciding which bike you have. But I want to kind of show you a couple things on my bike that I have set up for this, and then you can kind of, for your own self, whether you just need to go out and buy yourself another motorcycle, or whether maybe you want to swap your primary one so that you could take advantage of that huge season of cooler or colder weather riding and enjoy it in doing it. So I ride primarily a R1250 GSA by BMW. A couple features that I think make this, or the way I've set it up, make it great for cold weather riding. So one, I have a little bit taller windscreen on here, and I've actually thought about adding a deflector on top of that, just to make sure that as much wind is going over top of me as possible in the cold weather. If you're getting hit directly in the face and the chest with cold weather, that's going to be fatiguing. This bike came equipped with heated hand grips and a heated seat. Now, I'm not always using those, but I think they're really nice to either just quickly warm up your hand, warm up your torso, and they provide that extra options that you can actually take advantage of. I have this bike hardwired for heated gear. Now, I know there's ones that have battery operated, and there's probably pros and cons. The annoying thing about having it hardwired is that, like, you're clipped into the bike with a wire and then you have to unclip it, or you usually forget about it, you trip over it. Those are not great parts of that, but I like the fact that I'm not ever worried about battery life. I'm not worried about charging. As long as the bike is running, I've got heated gear and it's accessible. So I think that's something that works really nicely in my opinion, and that's the reason I went with the hardwired versus the battery. Everyone's got their preference on that. I do love, I bought a lamb's wool seat cover. As silly as that sounds, it is surprisingly warm. It's just bizarre. And in the summer, it honestly feels cooler than the vinyl seats that normally come on the bike. So I love the lamb's wool. It's very comfortable. It adds a definite degree of comfort, but it does add a degree of warmth. The other piece that is built into the GSA is a certain amount of wind protection. I got a larger tank here, and so my legs and my body are not getting hit constantly. Now, if you're riding a cafe racer or a cross rocket, obviously cold weather riding is going to be a different experience for you. If you're riding a Goldwing, probably you don't even have to worry about cold weather riding. You're just comfortable all the time. This bike, I think, is sort of a little bit of a compromise on that cold weather riding piece, but I think a really good compromise for my style of riding. And so I would think about the bike that you're riding. If you've got no fairing, if you've got no windshield, it's going to be a little bit more challenging for you on those types of trips. When it comes to cold weather riding, you can have a blast doing it. You can get a lot of more miles in. It's just a good justification for getting another motorcycle. I think three things you want to keep in mind, in my opinion, is one is the temperature, two is the wind, and that includes even the rain, and then three, just road conditions. You do have to be careful certain types of gears, whether that's acorns, leaves, sand. Certainly you can ride in those conditions. You just need to be a little bit more careful than if the pavement was dry. Be mindful of those conditions. I think that maybe the fourth piece that I would add is some people, the reason they put their bikes away is the chrome and some of the pieces with the salt and sand on the roads. They don't want that damage to their bike. Certainly understand that. There are times of the year, like I'll ride pretty much every month of the year, but I do try to be careful that I'm not riding in that really, if the roads are wet and there's salt on them, I want it to be dry so that I'm not going to damage the bike as much as possible. However, for the mental health, it's great to be out riding every time of year. And so I hope with some of these tips, you'll get out there and enjoy all of the beauty that nature has to offer. It's a good gift of God that we get to ride all year long. And so I hope with some of these tips, you can enjoy riding in cold weather. If you're doing other things to help you enjoy that, I'd love to hear what pieces of gear that you use or what techniques that you've used so that you too can enjoy riding in cold weather.